Good morning. Welcome to Faithfully Memphis. This is Canon Sharon Alexander, Canon to the Ordinary for the Episcopal Diocese of West Tennessee. Every Thursday morning at 8 a.m., we bring you interesting people to talk with and to learn more about the role that faith has played in their lives. We broadcast from WYXR 91.7 FM in Memphis, Tennessee. Normally, we start out with our saint of the day, but I am going to skip ahead a week, and next week when you're listening, you may hear about the same thing, but instead of talking about Mary and Martha, who are the saints for today, I'm going to talk about the Feast of the Transfiguration, which we do celebrate a week from today. And for those of you who don't remember your Bible stories, this is where Jesus and the disciples have been up in the northern area, and they have been doing all kinds of miracles and healings and teachings. And Jesus then knows that he's got to start heading south toward Jerusalem. And before he does that, he and Peter and James and John go up on top of a mountain, and the guys just think that they're going up there to pray with Jesus, but something remarkable happens. They see that Jesus just starts glowing white, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and then they see him talking with two people who they recognize as Moses and Elijah. And Peter is just overwhelmed by this, and he wants to build some booths and stay up there and worshiping, because he's never seen anything like this. None of them have. And they're just trying to figure out what's going on. And when Peter says, well, let's build these booths, then this voice comes from a cloud. And if you remember back in Exodus, anytime you hear a cloud and hear a voice, that's God talking. And so the voice says, this is my son, my beloved, listen to him. And what Jesus tells them is, it would be really, really nice to stay up here and to just have our wonderful communion with God and with our past prophets, but we got work to do. And we got to go back down the mountain. First thing they do when they do that is they do some healing. And that is one of the things that ties me to what we do at Amistad Mission. I'm going to be talking to Chris King, who is the Executive Director of Amistad Mission, in a few minutes here. But one of the special days of the church, the Feast of the Transfiguration, is one that ties me to Amistad, and there's a special reason for that, and a story that I love about it. Amistad Mission, and I'm going to let Chris talk more about it, but we are an American nonprofit that work with orphans down in Cochabamba, Bolivia. Most of you probably have never heard of Cochabamba, Bolivia. Chris and I are going to talk about that a little bit. But I started going down there about 20 years ago, and it made an incredible change in my life. We talk about Jesus being transfigured and transformed up on that mountain. Well, on a much lower level, that happened to me. Now, how in the world does the Feast of the Transfiguration fit in with my trips down to Bolivia? When I started going down to Bolivia, I was a lawyer. Had no idea that I would ever become an Episcopal priest, was not even on the roadmap. But when I got down there and I saw these children and I saw how Jesus was literally changing their lives for the better, kids who really started out with nothing. A lot of them are what we would just call throwaway kids. Nobody wanted them, and we wound up taking them at Amistad, and seeing what was happening there was profound. I went down thinking, yeah, I can go do some good down there. I can be the lawyer that shows some things that are important. I learned a whole lot more from them than I have ever taught any one of them. So how do we get to August 6th? Well, after I'd been going down for a while, I realized that I did feel called to ministry. And when it finally came time to set an ordination date for me, the bishop chose August 6th. And so the kids are asking me, when are you going to get ordained? Are you going to send us pictures? What can we do? And I told them, yep, the bishop has set a date, and the date is August 6th. And they just gasped, and they said, how did you convince the bishop to set your ordination on Bolivian Independence Day? And absolutely, that is a huge holiday down in Bolivia. August 6th, 1825 is when Bolivia became independent from Spain. And it's a little bit like a mini Mardi Gras all over the country. There are parades. There is tons of food. That's one of the things, if you think about going down to Bolivia with us, the food is amazing. And Chris and I will talk a little bit more about that. But that is something that just made a huge difference in my life. And so August 6th is one of those days that I just like to celebrate because, yes, it is this important feast day. It is the day that I got ordained, and it is a day where I have a special connection with the children and the staff at La Villa Amistad because I really would not be a priest if it weren't for them. And they changed my life in an incredible way. And in a few minutes, I am going to start talking to Chris King about Amistad, what we do, and what his history is with it. But right now, let's take a quick break. I have Chris King, who is the Executive Director of Amistad Mission, here with us this morning. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Sharon. Doing well. Thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely. I see that your boys aren't with you. Are they off someplace? I was hoping I could interview them too.
Yes, well, they're with their grandparents this morning, but I know that they're listening, and hopefully they'll have the opportunity to come back and talk a little bit more with me later about this experience.
Well, good morning, guys. Keep your grandparents in line, and also good morning to the other members of the Amistad board who are listening. And I have given some of our folks down in Bolivia a link to this, and so I'm going to welcome them as well. But Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from. How you got from where you were to where you are now.
Well, I was born and raised in Nashville. I've got one older brother. I'm a cradle Episcopalian, baptized and confirmed at Christ Church Cathedral in Nashville. And I've didn't really know growing up what I would do with my life. I did have the firm belief when I was a young boy that I could be the first baseman for the Atlanta Braves, but as a teenager, when I realized my athletic ability didn't quite match my dream, to say the least, I changed courses. In many ways, Amistad has led me to the path of working in this Christian nonprofit, and it's been a place that I've been a part of for almost 20 years.
I totally get it. I wanted to be an astronaut, and that didn't work out either. So, yeah, well, I'm really glad that the Holy Spirit led you toward Amistad because you have made a huge difference in so many lives by doing this. So you're the executive director. How long have you been doing that?
I've been in that role for about 10 years. My first trip down to Bolivia was in 2002. But I never envisioned from that experience that it would lead me into this role today, and it's been such an amazing blessing in my life.
Yeah, but before we talk about Amistad, I'm betting that some of our folks listening haven't really thought about Bolivia much. If they're watching the Olympics, they might have seen that there are 3 athletes from Bolivia, and there's actually one swimmer that's still in, and he's not favored for a medal, but it's really pretty incredible that a tiny little poor country like Bolivia is able to send 3 athletes over there. Tell us about Bolivia and its place in South America.
Certainly. Bolivia is one of those countries that's often overlooked. It's one of 2 landlocked countries in South America, but it has several notable claims to fame. It's has the world's largest salt flat, highest navigable lake, most biodiverse national park, and importantly, the tallest statue of Christ in the world, which is slightly taller than the more famous one in Rio. But it's just a fascinating country to explore. And I think that you and I both have experienced this, as many others who've been have, that the Bolivian people are among the warmest and most receptive to visitors that you'll encounter in the continent.
Absolutely. One of the things that concerned me the first time I was down there was I knew that the diplomatic relations between Bolivia and the U.S. weren't very good. But the moment I stepped off the plane in La Paz, I met nothing but absolutely friendly, welcoming people. They did make fun of my Mexican Spanish accent. But other than that, it has really been a wonderful experience down there. And Chris was talking about the Cristo de la Concordia there in Bolivia, and the way that we know that it is taller than the one in Rio is that they have a sign on it, and it says that it is 3 centimeters taller. And so if that's what the sign says, it must be true, right?
That's right. That's right.
But most folks know about Bolivia, if they know much at all. They may know that that's where Che was killed. And they also may know about Butch Cassidy and Sundance, and they were killed there, even though there are now some rumors that maybe not so. But well, from what I've seen, it looks like that's where they met their end. And you talked about the salt flats that shows up in one of the James Bond movies, right?
That's right. Yes, Quantum of Solace. Yep.
So that's what most people get to see about Bolivia. There's not a lot of trade between us. There are just some wonderful folks. So tell us a little bit about how Amistad started and what it's doing now.
Sure. Well, maybe I'll start a little bit about what we're doing now and kind of why we're there. You know, many families in Bolivia, because it's such an impoverished country, are unable to provide for the needs of their children. And that often leads to strained relationships, child abuse, and ultimately abandonment. And as you mentioned, we work in the city of Cochabamba. And our mission is to manifest Christ's love for the poor by helping Bolivian children and families in need. And we welcome into our Christian community, which we call Via Amistad, children who have previously experienced abuse or abandonment. And we unite biological siblings who may have been separated in different orphanages. And within Via Amistad, we have 7 casas, each with 7 to 10 children. And a mama is the primary caregiver to the children, and a tia, an aunt, is another who provides additional support. And then as teenagers, the children move to either our boys or girls youth house, where they finish high school, prepare for university or technical school. And then during higher education, they share apartments in the city. And right now we have 26 sibling groups ranging from ages 2 to 27. So it's a real lifelong commitment that we have with the children in our care.
Now, our orphanage, and I usually don't call it an orphanage, I just call it La Villa. But there are a lot of orphanages in Cochabamba. Abandoned children is a huge problem there, isn't it?
It really is. There are over 50 institutions in Cochabamba that provide for children, but most of them separate children based on age and gender. And so sibling groups may go through 3 or 4 orphanages from the time that they're babies to independent adulthood, and then they're 18 and they're left to fend for themselves. And what we do is we're uniquely equipped to receive large sibling groups and unite them under one roof and give them the opportunity to fulfill their God-given potential.
Yeah, and isn't it true that some of our biggest, I hate to call it like this, but suppliers of the children are the other orphanages, where a social worker has determined that we're a better place for the kids?
It really is. And it's kind of bittersweet every time you receive a child, because you know that child has already experienced such trauma early in life. But then you welcome them into the community of Via Amistad. And I think you're right. It's hard to think of it as an orphanage because there's such negative connotations with that. It's really a Christian community. And one of the most heartwarming parts of it is when children come in to see the responses of the others in the community who welcome them gladly and with open arms, and you feel God's presence so strongly there.
Yeah, I was there one day about 10 years ago, I guess it was, when little Jesus came, and he had just a couple of pairs of clothes, and he had this old beat up soccer ball, and he would not let go of that soccer ball until some of the kids from the house came, and they decided that it would be okay to play with that, and it was so beat up that they could hardly kick it at all any distance. But to me, that was just one of those small miracles that happens at Amistad all the time, is that when we get a new child, and they get there, they have no idea what to expect, and they're usually afraid, and they may well have been in an orphanage that was more like the ones that we associate with Little Orphan Annie and Miss Hannigan, and they come to La Villa, which is this big area where there's a lot of green space, a lot of place to play. And most importantly, a mama that loves them immediately, and children that are going to be their family. And they start calling each other hermanos and hermanas just very quickly.
Absolutely. It's such a joyful place. I think that through the years, we've had so many visitors come through, and they're just struck by the enthusiasm and the joy that the children exude. And I think that's what really calls us back again and again to be in this relationship.
Now, one of the questions that I get when I talk to people about Amistad is, do we adopt the kids out?
Yeah, and that's a great question. You know, I think a lot of people don't realize that international adoption is governed by treaties and conventions. And since the Hague Adoption Convention came into force in the U.S. in 2008, no U.S. citizen has been able to adopt a Bolivian child. But even before that time, there were usually fewer than 20 Bolivian children annually who were adopted by U.S. families. And, you know, within Bolivian families, it really is not common to adopt children who are not blood related. Before a child enters via Amistad, our all Bolivian staff does the investigative work to see if there are other family members who might be able to care for the children. And if not, we really focus on uniting biological sibling groups who have been separated in those different orphanages. And while the children are in our care, we do make a concerted effort to build familial bonds between the children and their families of origin. And we have the hope that a biological family member would at some time be able to gain custody. And in the best circumstances, that may happen after a child is with us for a year. But in many others, children who are now young adults have grown up with us for over 20 years. And our commitment to every child who comes to us is to provide that loving Christian community and an opportunity to go on to become an independent professional. And even last month, we received a 10-month-old baby girl, and our promise to her extends into independent adulthood.
Absolutely. And our name, Amistad, it means friendship. And that really means relationship, that it's our relationship with God and our relationship with the children. People ask me, why aren't we doing more politically down there? Why aren't we trying to do something bigger than just our orphanage? Why aren't we trying to change the country? And my response is, we're raising our kids to number one, be somebody who knows Christ's love and who is surrounded by that. Number two, to be good citizens of Bolivia. People always say, can we bring them over here to give them a college education? And my response is, actually, we want them to get educated in Bolivia so they're part of society, so they can be the agents of change.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think that's an important part, that they're the ones who can make the difference in their own country, and we can really learn from them.
Yeah, one of the she's not a child anymore. She just had her birthday yesterday. But one of the ones that I met early on, Mercedes, you talked about how we are there for them all along. And when I first met her, she was a teenager who wasn't really crazy about following the rules like a lot of others, and wound up talking to her, and she asked me what I did, and I told her I'm abogada, I'm a lawyer, and she asked, well, what does that do? And I explained it to her, and she said, that means you argue, right? And I said, yeah, that's right. And so she looked at me and crossed her arms and said, well, I'm going to be abogada. And sure enough, that's exactly what she is. She's a lawyer down there dealing with immigration issues and other issues, making a huge difference in the community. And coming back to La Villa and tutoring kids and being a mentor. We have a number of those success stories, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what's so inspiring is you see the older generations going on and becoming successful, and then it really inspires the younger generations to believe that that's a possibility. I mean, for so many of these children, the idea of going to university or technical school seems far-fetched, and less than 10% of the Bolivian population obtains a professional degree, but every single child at Amistad has that as part of their individual life plan. And what better role model than someone who's lived in the same environment as you and can attest to the possibility of achieving those dreams.
Absolutely. When I talk to people about our mission just being help the Holy Spirit transform lives, that's what I see, and in the process, our lives get changed. Well, tell us a little bit about the history of Amistad, how we got from where we started to where we are now.
Well, it's quite a story, and I think the origin of Amistad reflects how God places people in unexpected circumstances to do transformational work. So there was a Trappist monk, Father William Wilson, who had been living his entire adult life in a monastery in Iowa. And after 25 years there, he felt God calling him to live in solidarity with the poor. And he didn't know where or how until a missionary living in Bolivia came to the monastery, and Father William shared his calling with him. And so the missionary invited him to come to Bolivia. And the day after Christmas in 1981, Father William flew to the city of Cochabamba. And from there, he went to live in a really remote Quechua village in the Andes Mountains called Aramasi, which is about 3 hours from Cochabamba. And it's worth noting that Bolivians of Quechua descent are the largest indigenous group in the country, and Quechua is the most commonly spoken language after Spanish. So not long after Father William started living in Aramasi, his plan to have a life of contemplative prayer and solidarity with the poor, he wasn't there to do mission work. He really just wanted to live alongside the people. But that plan was interrupted by frequent knocks on his door from villagers who were suffering from serious illnesses. The village had no clean drinking water, no electricity, no access to medical care. And almost the entire population was malnourished and regularly suffered from tuberculosis or typhoid, dysentery, many preventable diseases. And 1 in 5 babies did not survive past infancy. So Father William realized he couldn't just stay idle, and he called a close U.S. friend and priest, B.J. Weber, who led Bible studies with a group of Wall Street businessmen. And they raised the money to build a health clinic in Aramasi and to bring potable water to the village and build a new school. And now Aramasi is self-sufficient and it no longer needs Amistad's support. So that was kind of the start of Amistad in that village. But at the same time, Father William would travel every few weeks into the city of Cochabamba to get supplies. And on those trips, he noticed many unattended children living in groups on the street. and he learned that there were state-run orphanages that provided care for children who had been abandoned. So he visited one of them and was just heartbroken by the conditions he saw. There were rows of cribs in a single room, sometimes 2 or 3 babies in a crib, with maybe 2 or 3 caregivers for 50 to 60 babies. And there was hardly time for anything but feeding, changing diapers. And from that experience, Father William describes leaving with a lump in his throat that he prayed would never go away, because it compelled him to take action to help what he said were God's most vulnerable children. And as we mentioned, most of these orphanages separated siblings based on age and gender, and they would just be passed from one place to another until age 18. So Father William again reached out to BJ and friends to help raise support. And in 1990, we opened Via Amistad, which is our children's village today, which is now in its 31st year. And at that time, we had 30 children in 3 houses. And now we have, between the ages of 2 and 27, 87 children in 7 different houses, youth houses, and independent living. So it was just a remarkable story. And some people ask, why is it called Amistad? And Amistad is the Spanish word for friendship. And it's really what this ministry was founded on, friendship between U.S. and Bolivians.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the things that we do when people ask us about it, the first thing that we ask for is not money, is it?
No, it's prayer. I think that's the most important thing, is that people realize that this is not just us going down to give money and to alleviate all the suffering that these children have endured. I think it starts with prayer and connection and relationship. And so before someone is writing a check, I hope that they have prayed through who the recipients and the beneficiaries of their generosity are. And hopefully it compels them to want to be in a deeper relationship with these children.
And we have a Prayer Friends program, don't we? If someone was interested in that, do we have children or staff who don't have Prayer Friends right now?
We do, especially the newest children to arrive. I think the Prayer Friends program is the greatest way for anyone to be involved in the ministry. We've had Prayer Friends who are as young as 3 and as old as 100. And it's not a financial commitment, but it is a commitment of your time. And you are committed to pray for that child or staff member daily, to correspond at least 3 times a year, particularly on times like Easter, Christmas, and a child's birthday, and to stay committed. It's not a relationship of a year or 2 years. We hope that it's one that will be a blessing for many years. And I know in my own family, we've had a prayer friend for over 20 years. And one of the joys is to watch the children grow up through the years. There was a prayer friend just this week from St. John the Divine in Houston, Texas, who was celebrating his prayer friend's 21st birthday. And he made a nice collage of all the photos that he's had of that child and the cards that he's received from him over the last 15 years. And for the children, I think that's one of the most meaningful relationships, that you're someone who cares about them half a world away. And I know, Sharon, you've felt that in your life too, right?
Absolutely. There was a time at dinner that I had, a number of years ago, with some of the older girls as they were getting ready to go to university or were already in it. And I asked them, what made the biggest difference from y'all? What helped you get through all of this? And each one of them said, someone cared who didn't have to. And a couple of them were prayer friends of mine. And I still pray for them every day. But what's more powerful to me is that I've had their prayers as well. And if you have some of the little ones as your prayers, I truly believe there is nothing more powerful than the prayer of a 5-year-old.
That's right. That's right.
There are no holds barred when kids that age pray, and have that on your side is just huge. So if anyone is interested in the Prayer Friend program, you can contact me at the Diocese of West Tennessee, or Chris, what's the website for Amistad?
AmistadMission.org.
AMISTAD, and you can find out a whole lot of information there. But Chris, tell us a little bit more about that first trip. Is there any particular memory you've got, or anything funny that happened?
Well, I had just graduated high school, and I went down with a youth mission trip, but it's more like a pilgrimage. I think that's an important distinction to make, because you're really going down to be in relationship with the children.
Yeah, we're not building the wall that gets torn down after we've been there, so that it can be put up by the next group, right?
That's true. We're building relationships and hoping for long-lasting ones. And on that initial visit, it was a group of youth from Christ Church Cathedral, and we've built and sponsored Casa Cantuta for the last 21 years. And I went down thinking that it would be fun to play with the children, practice a little bit of my Spanish. What I wasn't prepared for is how deeply moving the experience would be. I had taken Spanish in high school. It was really vocabulary, grammar, so I did not have the confidence in speaking. But one of our group members, Lauren McCatherine, my god sister, had no reservations about just going straight up to the children and using her Spanish, and it put us all at ease. And before the hour was over, we were all on the floor playing Uno with the kids and being led around their rooms, and shortly thereafter, soccer. And it struck me at that time, and I probably couldn't articulate it well at that age, but how these children had suffered so much in their lives, yet were so willing to trust and love. And it just moved me. And I'd never felt God's presence so strongly as when I was in Via Amistad with those children. And following that experience, I made two promises to myself: that I would become fluent in Spanish and go back and live amongst the children. And I had that opportunity for 2 years following college.
That's a wonderful start. I think my story is that I was a lawyer in Dallas, and a good friend of mine was talking. Another lawyer was talking about a trip that her Methodist church had taken down to Cochabamba. And I remembered, there was something in our church's newsletter, St. Michael and All Angels, that was written in Spanish. And it says, if you can read this, then we need you to help with our Latin American ministries. And so I thought, okay, I remember that. Let me check on it. And this was back in the days where everything was faxed. And so I call up the outreach director and I say, hey, can you fax over the list of mission trips that are coming up? And usually my secretary would take it off of the fax machine printer that was right near her desk and just put it in my inbox. But this time she picked it up and she brought it into my office and she put it down right in front of me on top of all my legal papers. And she pointed to the third one on the list and she said, did you know that I was born in Cochabamba, Bolivia to missionary parents? Wow. And I'm just thinking, okay, the Holy Spirit's messing with me now. And I really wasn't even ready. And we can talk about preparing for a trip down there, but they let me go anyway, in part because I could speak border Spanish, which is what I grew up, growing up in South Texas speaking. And I was thinking, like I said earlier, that, I can go down and make a difference down there. How big lawyers are about that. And little did I know that I was going to see a side of Jesus working in a way that I had never seen before, and being with the kids. And one of the things that just caught me early on was the Bible study done with the mamas and the tias, and to hear their prayers. One woman her daughter had been in a car wreck, and she asked for forgiveness in the prayer. She said, "Forgive me because I've been wanting something material. I've been wanting that car back when I should have just been grateful that my daughter wasn't hurt." And I just thought, wow, I don't hear that kind of prayer in Dallas, Texas very often. And it just really opened up a whole different way of looking at things. And like you said, a relationship that I knew that it wouldn't make sense for me to not come back regularly to see those kids. And that was just, that's why I'm a priest now. I can blame Amistad for that.
Well, it's amazing. You know, God plants those seeds in your heart, and you never know how they'll grow. And I think you're right. You know, for visitors who go down, one of my favorite things to see is those first time visitors who are experiencing it after, you know, I've gone down so many times through a new lens, and I've heard, you know, youth who've gone down and they said, "I've been so stressed about school, where I'm going to go to college, and this experience has helped me to see what truly matters, and that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't the biggest decision that I'll ever make." And then there's others who go down and say, you know, the business executive says, "This is the only place I can unplug and truly feel that I'm connected with God and helping to be a part of something beyond my comfort zone." And oftentimes, you know, people don't go down speaking Spanish. I'd say, you know, 9 out of 10 people who visit Amistad don't speak Spanish, and yet you have the ability to communicate with these children in nonverbal ways. And then others, you know, it's a great family trip too. There are plenty of parents who've said, I go down there and I can reconnect with my children. I get to know them even better. So I think that's one of the beauties, is that for us going into this community, we're able to have unique experiences, and it speaks to everyone in a different way.
And it is an absolutely beautiful country. The part that we're in is kind of in the foothills of the Andes Mountains, and what's the altitude there in Cochabamba? 9,000, 10,000 feet, something like that.
That's right, about 9,000 feet. And you know, Cochabamba is known as the city of eternal spring. Mm-hmm. So there is never a bad time to go. The climate is very agreeable any time of the year. Yeah,
no mosquitoes.
That's right.
It really is some of the most gorgeous weather, and even in the rainy season, it's not like the monsoon seasons we have in hurricane country here or anything like that.
Right.
But Chris, if somebody was interested in exploring going down to visit La Villa, how would they get started on that? Well, let's start with COVID right now. Are we doing any trips down there?
We're not currently doing any trips due to the pandemic right now, but we have usually between 85 and 100 visitors go down each year. Many of them are coming from the churches that sponsor one of the houses in the Children's Village. We have largely Episcopal churches that are affiliated with the ministry, but we're very ecumenical as well. One of our longest partners is New Providence Presbyterian Church in New Jersey, and they've been sending groups down for decades. So we welcome groups to come down, anywhere from 2 to 14 individuals. And we have a retreat center where all visitors stay and have their meals prepared for them there, with a bilingual interpreter as well as a driver who takes you around.
Mm-hmm. And that food is amazing.
It is.
We've got a cook there that, and what I love is that she'll spice it up to the level that I like it.
Yeah, you can have some of the yakwa. They have this locoto pepper that's distinct in Bolivia that they often add to dishes.
You put it on a steak, you put it on vegetables. It doesn't matter. It's just wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, the food, folks ask about the food. I think the food there is amazing. And I don't know what the prices are now, but when I started going down there for about $14, you could get a steak dinner with at least 3 or 4 different kind of potatoes. Because remember that potatoes are originally from the Peru, Bolivia area. And when you go to the open air mercados, you can see sometimes 30 different kinds of potatoes. Lots of starch, and it's all really good.
Yes, hearty meals, they are indeed. And I love just the variety of produce, a lot of fruits that I'd never heard of, like chirimoya, maracuya, pacay, are grown right there in Bolivia, and some within the villa itself. And so you are getting the freshest, most direct produce right there.
Yeah, that's right. If somebody goes down, they can see our community garden at different times of the year. The kids are actually helping grow the food that they eat.
That's right. Yeah, year round, it produces up to 25% of the vegetables consumed in the houses. And we've been operating our communal garden for about 10 years now, and have had close to 24 different varieties of crops. And not only is it nutritious for the children, but it's a great educational opportunity for them to learn about agriculture, growth, crop cycles, rotation, nutrients. And there's something about having 100% organic produce, and the children always say that it tastes much better than what you could buy in the marketplace. And probably because it's the literal fruits of their labor.
That's right. And in the afternoons, they're still making the pan de tarde, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Fresh bread from the bakery. There's nothing better than the pan con queso that they have, the cheese bread. That if you're a visitor there, you'll absolutely have the opportunity to have fresh baked bread right out of the oven.
Yeah, it's a really good thing that we spend a lot of time walking, because the food is truly amazing. So anyway, back to if folks wanted to go back down there, one of the things that I would like to do here in Memphis is get a couple of our churches together to explore this. And like you said, we can't go down this year because of COVID. In part, we don't want anybody picking it up down there, but we also don't want us to unknowingly possibly take it down there either.
That's right.
So one of the things that I hope to do is invite Chris. Well, I've actually already invited him. I just need to get a few of our churches together so that he can make that quick trip from Nashville over here to Memphis to talk about how we might be able to go down and just let folks in Memphis see a side of the world that is incredibly poor but incredibly beautiful and incredibly holy. And so tell us a little bit more about what folks would expect beyond La Morada, the place that we were just talking about where folks stay.
Well, I think the first thing for any potential visitor to go down is, are you ready for your life to be changed? Because if you're comfortable with everything that's going on, then you probably shouldn't go down. I've never met anyone who went down and didn't say it was just a transformational experience. And a lot of things that we do with visitors while we're down there is interact with the kids, whatever they're doing during the day, whether it be working in the garden, playing soccer, which they love, dodgeball, making bread, doing different games and activities. It's about really building those lasting relationships. We also take them on outings to the city. So we might have a picnic out at a local park, go up to visit the Christ statue, and just have experiences that will be memories for them. A lot of times those repeat visitors are so moved because when they get off the bus and they first go into Villa Amistad, there's just this wave of children who come up to them and hug them saying, "Amigo, amiga." And it's as if you're coming home, and you feel like a rock star because you're just embraced by the children immediately. And it's just so moving to be a part of. So I think that those who are really considering what it would be like to see something that is completely different culture, as well as to see an opportunity to grow in faith. I think one of the most important parts of going internationally is the preparation. And so I would really encourage those who are interested to learn more about Bolivia. We have a number of recommended documentaries, books, shows to watch about it. And we also encourage visitors to pray for the children and the staff at Amistad before going down. And so every Lent, we do a series of 40 days reflections on the children and the staff members, so that visitors, before they go down, already have a familiarity of the faces they'll be seeing and the people with whom they'll interact on their visit.
Wonderful. And if anybody in the Memphis area is interested in potentially going down, you can contact me at the diocesan office, and I would be happy to help organize that. Chris, we're going to take a break here, and then we'll come back and maybe talk about a question that stumps either you or me. Chris, you were going to ask me a question about one of the unofficial saints of Bolivia. Go ahead and ask the question.
So this is one that I know many may not be aware of, but I was going to ask you, who is the local apparition of the Virgin Mary who has an immense festival but is not recognized by the Vatican?
Absolutely. I have been down there for that one, because you go down to South America and you see Our Lady of Guadalupe all over the place. She's the patron saint of the Americas. And you see Our Lady of Copacabana, who has nothing to do with the Barry Manilow song. And the festival that Chris is talking about is Our Lady of Urcupiña. And she is not recognized from the Vatican for one big reason, that you often pray to saints for sacred things like healing, or like you've lost something that's very dear to you. Well, you pray to Our Lady of Urcupiña if you want a new car or a new house. And it's this huge festival. And people ask me, as a priest, do I have a problem with this? And I don't think most people are really taking it seriously. This is more like Mardi Gras. This is people going out to have a good time. And they've got these tents set up where you can go in and say, if you want to pray for a new house, you go in and buy this plastic little house. Or if you want a car, you go in the tent that sells the plastic cars. And folks ask me what I went in and got. I said, I got one of those paper passports, and said I wanted to travel all over the place. So anyway, it looks like we are running out of time here. Chris, you have been to the festival as well, right?
I have, and one of the hallmarks of the festival is going up to the hill, and you grab a large sledgehammer and you bang away at the rocks up there, because the legend goes that the Virgin appeared to a shepherd girl, and there she told the shepherd girl to retrieve some stones and carried them home, and by the time she got home, they turned to silver. So many of the Bolivians will be banging away at the rocks, and it was my turn to go and do it. And after several futile attempts, I finally chipped away a tiny little sliver of rock, and it was quite humorous to the people around me. But I guess that was the size of my blessing for the day.
Yeah, I managed to get a big old hunk of the rock chipped off, but I never went back and prod it back. So my blessing was never complete. So I guess I won't get that big round the world trip.
Yes, that's right. That's what you got to do. You have to bring the rock back.
Yeah. Well, Chris, it has been a pleasure to talk with you. We do encourage anyone who wants to know more about Amistad Mission to get in touch with either of us. You can look at the diocese website or the website of Amistad Mission to do that. Want to remind folks that you can find the Diocese of West Tennessee on Facebook and on Instagram, and you can find Amistad on the same. And you can listen to this podcast later on on any of your favorite podcasts on Spotify, wherever you like to listen. So please sign up and look at this. You can find all of this information on the diocesan website. And I would just like to wish everybody a buen dia. Down in Bolivia, they say buen dia instead of buenos dias. This is Sharon Alexander and Chris King signing off.